Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fireside chat. Although we are Kim, where's our fire?
I've got one on the go.
Okay, welcome to our fireside chat. We are RAPP. We are an agency here joining our friends at TechZulu in the Trend Lounge. And we were going to be talking for the next hour a little bit about customer experiences and how what we're seeing at South by Southwest, some of the forthcoming trends that we're seeing are really affecting what we do as an agency working with brands and building platforms and customer experiences. So a little background on who we are. RAPP is a full-service communications agency who focuses on building customer experiences. And so our noble purpose as an agency is to create experiences that make products and services ultimately more intuitive, more valuable, more useful, and ultimately a little bit more fun. And so in that mission, we're here at South by Southwest scouring the conference, looking for all things trend-wise that are going to influence what we're doing on a daily basis. And so I'm joined here by some of my RAPP brethren. My name is Dila. I am the Chief Development Officer for RAPP in the US, and I'm joined here by some of my brethren from RAPP, starting with Josh Team, who is from our technology group out of our Dallas office. Tracy Brown, who's here representing our strategy practice out of our Dallas office. She's also our managing director of our Dallas office. Craig Elamelia, who is head of technology out of our New York facility. Scott Lindsay, who's the head of creative out of our Dallas location. And of course, the esteemed Kim Pick, who brings our fire to us, our warmth, who is the executive creative director out of our New York location. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and actually open it up to each of my fellow panelists here and just talk a little bit about what they're seeing at the festival, what they've seen thus far, that's really kind of getting them going from their respective disciplines. What are the things that are really igniting their fire, so to speak? So we'll start with Tracy Brown.
Tracy Brown. I think the biggest thing that I'm taking away from the conference right now, Z, is just how technology and data, right, the core and the roots of what we do at RAPP, everything is coming full circle, right? What was old is now new. There is nothing really new about how you use data and technology to create experiences. I think the thing that I'm finding is it's becoming easier. So we spent a lot of time talking to companies that have API for data. And so it doesn't matter who's housing the data, where the data is, it's all about what you do with that data. And so again, I feel like what we're seeing at the conference thus far is just how technology is making it easier to do what is at the core and the heritage of what we do.
Absolutely. Craig?
Having come to South by over the past few years, I think that this year I'm starting to see the festival become a lot more human. I think that over the past few years we've kind of all expected the next big app to launch and new technologies to launch, and this year it just feels like things are starting to kind of fall back and people are starting to come to the forefront. Yesterday we saw the launch of a new product from MakerBot, a 3D scanner to go with the 3D printer.
I know you love that.
And that was something that not only did I love, but it was something that represented a new phase in not only what we do, but I think in the creativity and the collaboration that humans are going to have with the types of brands and the types of technologies they're going to be interacting with. And I think it's going to be the year that, I don't think it's going to be the year that South by Southwest jumps the shark, so to say, in terms of technology. I think it's going to be the year in which South by Southwest becomes equally important as music, movies, etc. to culture, and that excites me a lot.
Scott?
Yeah, I definitely have to echo that because the 3D printer, it's kind of strange to think about, that the digital side of everything coming back to something that you can hold and that is a tangible thing that in our society, it's definitely going to help the world in general, create new things and create different ways to interact with things, or even one of the really things that I'm very tripped out about is the fact that you can archive many of the elements in your life. So they announced the printer. Obviously, we have the printer, but they announced the scanner. So now I can scan things in my life and, in essence, back those up and archive those. So in the future, my family or anything like that could bring those back, from the data, as well as I see this growing to be such a bigger thing that it could be a tangible, what was a photograph of a memory can now be a 3D thing that you can print out in the future, which is a really weird thing to think about because I have a kid, a girl, and she can, in the future, my great-grandkids could do these things like this. So it adds a whole new element to our existence, which is very massive.
Absolutely. Miss Pick.
Well, I arrived late last night, so my session today has very much been about behaviour, and it's been very interesting just talking about the way people are interacting with technology. Session this morning about how people are using Twitter and how second screens are working with TV consumption. That was very interesting for me and very relevant to what we're doing. And the other session I was very interested in was just about behavioural change and specifically how you make people or how people want to change their behaviour and methods of doing so. Maybe we'll touch on it more later, but that's been a very fascinating and relevant thing for me.
Absolutely. And Mr. T.
I think the sentiment's been shared throughout, but I think the main thing is whether it's making something with MakerBot, whether it's seeing how people are coming to the forefront. We've always seen South by and digital as a way for we can take our experiences and broadcast them out in the social space, share them with our friends and family, and we've had these aggregators, Facebook, Twitter. And what's really happening now is we're using this technology to what's happening out in the social world to change our real life. And so the paradigm's kind of flipping, and our real life's being inspired by what's happening in the digital world versus us taking our real life actions and just echoing them out in the digital world. And that's really exciting.
Great. All wonderful things. I completely share all of your sentiments, by the way. So now I think I'm going to open it up to a couple questions. I know some of us have been having this conversation of some of the topics that we've seen, and so I'm going to throw out some of the things that we've all been talking about that are kind of getting us going, so that we can discuss them in a little bit more detail for all of our audiences on the web and in this room. So the first thing I want to discuss is this idea of collaboration techniques. So there's a lot of sessions that are centered on this idea of the proper way of working together, the collaboration models that make more productive teams. And as an agency, that's something that's very near and dear to our hearts, as we are all kind of cross-discipline here represented and need to work together very closely. So Scott, I know you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, and some of the things that you've been learning about those collaboration techniques.
Yeah, I was interested yesterday. There was a book reading. They call it a book reading, but the person's not actually reading the book. They're going over some aspects of the book, and it's really breaking down meetings, which is a massive part of our existence right now in the corporate world. We have a lot of meetings, but it's really trying to put a frame around a meeting that is based on a gamification model, because we're all in meetings every day, usually at the office, and really trying to figure out ways to get a flow for a meeting, and based around the kind of game theory that we're using in a lot of the marketing materials that we're doing, but putting that on a perspective of inside of a meeting, how we can achieve certain goals based on the rules of the game, the goal of the game, how to play the game, and things like that. I thought was very interesting as well. There's a book, and I didn't bring my notes, but maybe you can tweet that out or something. But yeah, it's a cool theory to think about.
We'll make sure to tweet that from RAPP at RAPP so you guys can follow.
Yeah, I think that what I'm seeing is there seems to be this sentiment of doing, right? So I think around collaboration, it's more about activating and being able to get things done quicker, being able to get to results quicker. I think that the keynotes typically set the tone for the event, and so far we've had MakerBot, we've had Elon Musk, and those are two companies that literally have just done the future, right? You have 3D printing, 3D scanning, brand new cars, space travel. So, it's about literally doing what, I think that we in the past have sort of skirted around and kind of thought was way ahead into the future. And one of the wonderful things about South by Southwest is that you get a glimpse of that future in a very tangible form, right? People are doing these things.
Absolutely. And actually, to that end, another discussion I know we've been having is around this idea of we work with marketers, right? We work with marketing organizations. How do we bridge? How do we become the agents, more effective agents for bridging kind of the corporate world in which we're working a lot of times to this kind of bleeding edge of technology where kind of the future is possible and there's all sorts of different things happening. So how do we become more effective mediators for our clients and bring that kind of innovation to them? Tracy?
There was a very interesting session this morning. It was called Leadership Lessons from Jazz. And it basically talks about the fact that leaders of today in large organizations really need to behave as jazz musicians in the sense that you actually have to live in the moment. And so there's a new leadership model that is emerging where they're saying now, the goal is really learning and executing at the same time. There is this term called provocative competence. And what he was saying is basically, you've got to be comfortable pushing yourself to the edge of routine and then giving yourself that extra push so that you're almost over your head. That's where the real breakthroughs are going to come. And just as jazz musicians improvise, our clients, this is now our world. It's around improvisation and how you're actually going to take the inputs that you're given and make something great out of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. A little note on that is jazz improvisers, when they're doing what they do, the studies have shown that they actually have a way of kind of clicking off and turning off a portion of their brain that is an inhibitor. So as a child, you don't really have an inhibitor like that in your brain, so that's why you come up with all these really crazy ideas as a child. But as we get older and the world kind of hardens us, we learn certain things that prevent us from really putting those inhibitors aside. So they did a test where they hooked up something to a scanner to a jazz musician, and they realized that jazz musicians shut off that portion of their brain. So that goes back to being creative as well. So creativity is a huge part of improvising.
And I think another keynote here is that, as Tracy was talking about, evaluating those inputs and what are we going to do with those, and understanding that those inputs don't always happen inside of an organization. I mean, they don't come out of meetings necessarily. And we go look at Netflix, and Netflix had the competition where they're very famous and renowned for. They said, you know what? We don't have the best algorithm for predicting what movie you want to see next. Instead, let's open that up and let's put a bounty on that and see what people come back with. And that wasn't new to Netflix. It actually existed before, and people were using kind of the social channels and kind of aggregate sites to say, hey, look, we know we aren't staffed to solve every problem perfectly at every given moment. Instead, we know that we've got a great staff and a great structure, but there's times when we need to go out there and get inputs from other sources. And one of the really interesting things is, as you look at these 3D printers, which, to your point, we see these enterprise clients, and they're like, well, that's scary. I mean, that's a lot of power for consumers to have with our intellectual property and all that. But another way of looking at it is that gives a whole new channel and a whole new mechanism for all these new inputs to come in. We can have these brilliant people across the globe now very, very cost efficiently give you ideas and prototypes that would normally take your organization probably a long time and a lot of money to figure out. And that, I think, to Tracy's point and what Scott's saying, is we embrace that and we can help our clients understand that it could be an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Z, the way to, in one simple phrase, how we're going to help these corporations bridge this gap is they've got to get comfortable with saying yes to the mess, right? So 3D printing, oh my God, intellectual capital, property, all these things, the success is going to come when you actually say, I'm going to accept this mess and improvise my way to a new solution.
I think
Absolutely.
my experience, just I think a lot of marketers are structured a certain way, and marketing departments have seen so much change in the last 5 years. I think they're struggling at how to structure themselves against it, particularly when it comes to embracing social media. Can they do it? How do they do it? Are you willing to release control? And I think it is that releasing control to say, okay, I'm not in charge of this, and actually allowing the consumers to lead you and to follow behind them if need be, to be in their spaces, to partner with them. It is a big step to make, but I mean that's something that's being discussed here, is about making these dynamic changes as opposed to small incremental ones. Sometimes you need to do that to be disruptive and to get ahead of the game.
So, absolutely. So one of the other trends that we're kind of seeing a lot of discussion around is this idea of the convergence of technology, the convergence of devices, right? And how can we create simplification as opposed to creating additive experiences for people so that they have to use yet another app, right? And they can simplify their lives. So Craig, I know we were having this conversation earlier because this is something you feel pretty strongly about.
I think we've hit app overload, and I think that it's where technology is taking us right now is how do we streamline the app experience and the device experience. We're starting to see singular devices doing a lot more. I think that over the course of the past year, we saw a lot of companies start making devices to work hand in hand with our smartphones. But then all of a sudden, towards the end of last year, our smartphones started doing a lot of the things that those devices were doing on its own, and kind of building functionality that, finding ways to be creative with functionality in ways that they can live more harmoniously. I think anybody who has a smartphone, which I think is everyone, understands that when you're in a moment and you want to capture that moment. I think we've all become very accustomed to instinctually sharing the moments we're in, and what's happening is we're being taken out of those moments, and because of that, we as humans, we're instinctively finding ways to be in the moment, but we have this necessity of sharing the moment in order to create better connections with the people that we care about, our networks. So, one of the things we did this year was we built a platform. We launched a platform here called PopTag, which does pretty much that. It allows you to add context to hashtags. So you can take a picture using Twitter, and by applying a certain hashtag, you can filter the picture or apply any type of effects to the picture. We also aggregate all that content into one place automatically. So what we're looking to do as an experience agency is find pockets of experiences that consumers want and need better utility around, and in keeping them. I mean, in one way, we do want their attention, but I think as human beings, we're responsible for not completely taking their attention away from them, but enough to provide them service and utility, and at the same time find what those experiences that any particular person is in, finding pockets of meaningfulness within those experiences. So
absolutely, that actually dovetails really nicely into some of the other conversations around this idea of behavior, right? And that the creation of utility, and how do we, or how can we make behavior change within people through kind of enhanced experience design. Kim, I know that you saw a session this morning from Professor BJ Fogg around this topic.
Yeah, so. It was a fantastic presentation this morning from BJ Fogg. I wasn't familiar with him, but he's head of the design lab at Stanford University, and particularly looking at behaviour. And he talks about some words that we're using in the marketing community. One is we want people to, we want to motivate behaviour change. It's something that we talk about, but he actually says that that's going about it the wrong way. And often marketers, say at New Year, talk about New Year's resolution and having a brand new you, and expecting people to make huge departures from the routines they usually have. He said actually that's not the way we should approach behaviour change. We should approach it in a series of very tiny steps that you incorporate into your regular daily behaviour. So an example of that is, rather than saying, I'm going to drink 8 glasses of water a day, a actionable step. For a start, that's a very abstract thing to say, I'm going to do that. A far better thing to do would be to say, I'm going to put a full glass of water on my office desk every morning when I go into work. He says that's an example where if you set about achieving that and congratulated yourself for that success, you are much more likely to have success in your ultimate goal of drinking 8 glasses of water a day by affecting that small behavioural change. One of the things that he built on that I thought was fantastic was about also building change into the behaviours you do every day naturally. The example he gave was peeing. And he was saying that something that you do every day, why not link some sort of behaviour change to something that you do every day? So his own fitness change is to say, after I pee, I'm going to do 2 press-ups. Tiny little achievement. Now he's actually got to the stage where he's willing to take someone on in a sort of push-up, pull-up competition based on a behaviour change that began with this tiny little success step that he implemented for himself. And I think this is actually bringing that back to technology. We can actually make it easier for people to engage with technology, to make these tiny little steps and actually improve their behaviours for them. So I'm very interested in seeing how we incorporate that into some of the customer experiences we're building. Success momentum.
Craig, I know you saw a session on the quantified self, which talked a little bit more about the healthcare space specifically and how that's being influenced by this idea of behavior modification.
Yeah, it wasn't what I expected. It was a person's journey. She had gotten sick. She had gotten Crohn's disease, and it was her journey to use the quantifiable self sort of movement to track her behavior, to develop better eating habits in order not to get flare-ups. And she had made a very interesting remark where, we talk about frictionless technology and we talk about things that make things easier for people, but sometimes people need things to be a little bit hard, right? So as an agency, I think we need to understand how to look at every single behavior for what it is and not make sweeping statements. I think as an industry we tend to say, things like frictionless or things like, buzzwords against things that kind of blanket stuff. And, one thing that I took away from that particular section is that we really need to look at every challenge in a very unique way and tackle it in a unique way. And I was enlightened by the fact that she actually wanted something a little more difficult in order to challenge herself to get better from a disease that she was suffering from. And for me, that just sort of turned on a little light in my head, where something that I'll take back to the agency and to our clients is that it's not always about X. You have to look at every challenge and every problem in a particular way, especially when it comes to human behavior. Because I think we are very complex beings, and when applying technology to human behavior, there's no one rule. There are many rules and many different approaches. And that was something that, I think we all knew, but you get reminded of that in a way that is very impactful.
To build on that too, Z, there was one of the sessions yesterday was around the customer experience economy. And it really just talked about the fact that the lines were blurring between personal and work. But you had to always start with what problem are you solving for the person, whether it's a personal or a work. What is that actual problem that you're solving for?
Talk about that a lot at RAPP.
And you can't, it all starts from there. And then from there, you think about from a utility perspective, is it service? Is it fun? Is it entertaining? Is it educational? How are you going to add on to that? And that's what people more and more are looking for and looking to today.
Another thing I think is really interesting too, we've all worked with very large brands, and when we start talking about these experiences and stuff, that a lot of times I'm just hearing and it's resonating these memories of we want to challenge and we want to do but we're very complex, and one of the things we run into a lot is, well, this is a lot to chew off. And I think one of the cool things about South by Southwest is, and something that we try to do, I think, in RAPP is we don't really worry too much about the burden or the challenge of it. We get into it and figure it out, and because I think that's one of the key things is going and knowing this is going to be tough. This is a hard problem to solve, but we want to solve that. We want to be the leading edge. We don't just want to follow, and we have to get uncomfortable with that, and we have to identify that problem that we're going to solve and say, we know the solution. We know we're going to get to a solution, but we don't have to necessarily have it all figured out for the first steps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I actually have. There was a session I attended yesterday, and it's kind of a bizarre. It was a very weird session. It was based on the Unabomber. This is weird stuff, but
You would talk about this,
Yeah.
Scott Lindsay.
so and this is weird stuff. And the Unabomber was this guy that did a lot of horrible things, but he wrote a manifesto, and his whole manifesto was based on technology at some point will control everything and take over everything, right? At one point, I became offended. So there were two panelists, and one panelist was focused on backing up this manifesto that the Unabomber wrote, which in some ways, if you're looking into the future, technology and how all this stuff takes over our life. And then the other person was really supporting the fact that the Unabomber was a psycho and so on and so forth. But it was kind of shocking to think that, that a lot of these things we do, at one second, I kind of realized, I was like, well, wait, what is the long-term goal in all of this technology? I mean, at what point is it going to start reading my brain and just doing things for me, and I just stay on the sofa at home? Like, I don't want that to happen, obviously. But, I at one point realized, well, that technology has helped mankind from day one. We talk about the wheel, right? That helps us get, where we need to go. You talk about medicine, all of these great things, which are technology. It's all part of technology. And as a creative person, technology, the great growth of technology that we deal with today has really helped me express myself as an artist, as a musician, in every facet that I can possibly think. And it's so much so that I can't even keep up with it. I get frustrated because I need to do more. But that said, I envision at some point that technology will jump the shark, in a sense, because you know that 4 years from now in Austin at South by Southwest, guys are going to be popping their flip phones out that they used in like 2000 because it's going to be hip and trendy and cool. Because we've already seen now that you can hook your like a headset, like the old school, like we used to use, where you would stretch them across the house. Well, they have one of those now where you talk on a headset. Like, why? But at some point it will jump in and it's going to be a passé thing. It'll be like, I don't need a smartphone.
So what you're saying is we should page you?
No, it's going to be funny. It's going to be funny at some point, So, but it also is interesting how it's, that the youth, they're very sarcastic, right? And so I'm wondering how long it's going to take to get to that point where all of this becomes passé to the sarcastic youth. It's a very deep, long thought, but I see it happening, right? Because it all comes around in circles.
It will never happen, and a robot is about to come and kill you.
I know, there's some system out there that's like looking for...
It is interesting how quickly, though, do people tire of a trend. When you think, was it last year? And it seems it can only be 1 year ago. Did Nike Fuel Band get launched 1 year ago? And you think about what's happened in the year since and all the things that have come out now and the way people are using technology to influence. It seems like it must be 5 years ago, but time seems to be really speeding up in terms of technology. Google Glass is going to be out very, very soon. At what point do we stop this sort of massive acceleration? It's difficult for us all to keep up with these changes and the adoption of them.
Well, I think that's all back to the accessibility point. All the companies we're seeing here back before, even 2 years ago, unless you're Facebook, unless you're a huge brand that has tons and tons of data, you couldn't do much. And Nike was the only one that could do this because they have millions and millions of customers and they sell millions and millions of shoes and they had the ability to create these platforms that connect to people. That's no longer the case. Now you've got 1,000 vendors who, for almost free, will give you their data and allow you to build these experiences. And so you have this creativity spawning up that's allowing people and brands and companies, without having the barrier of entry of having to have terabytes of customer data, enter the space of experience design. And that is, I think, one of the key elements. And I think as creative and as technology and as our strategies grow, more and more of that, how data becomes accessible and the barrier of entry shrinks, it's going to continue to speed up because there's no barrier anymore.
Well, the irony in the meeting that I was in yesterday is the big data meeting was full. So they turned me away from that, so I went to the Unabomber. So I don't suppose, but it was just funny that the big data, that's what everyone was there to see, and then they all shifted over to the Unabomber. So
well, that's actually a perfect segue.
South by Southwest.
So let's talk a little bit about data. Data is obviously, as RAPP, data is at the core of everything that we do. You know, nobody knows data better than we do. And so actually, I'm gonna put Miss Tracy Brown on the spot here and get her take on what she's hearing. Like, what are you hearing about data in terms of some of the sessions? And maybe what are some of the sessions you haven't seen that you're looking forward to that are going to be discussing this topic?
Yeah, I like the spot, actually, so thanks for putting me on that spot. This, for me, I started this data journey in the 90s, right? So all of the stuff that we said we were going to do, personalized, one-to-one marketing, being able to predict behavior and all these things, it's just come full circle, right? So my little mantra has been, I want my mind blown at South by Southwest. So I've been running around with
on
these,
her button. She wants her mind
with
blown.
these smart folks, but basically saying, where's the new? And I think the new is just the accessibility. Everybody now can access the data, and I think it's all about what you do with that data. Who has the smarts, who has the roots, who has the heritage to actually make something out of all the big data and everything else that is out there. So but there's no new news. I guess the new news is now you can get the data. In the 1990s, we didn't have the data, right? It was just drawing on a page or a PowerPoint. Right, everybody had their own data. So I think for me, Z, it's just been the, I don't know, if I hear freemium one more time around the, the business model on how people are making money with these APIs and data, I mean, I've talked to at least 10 people today just about that.
I've had some really interesting conversations with different data scientists that I've actually run into here at South by Southwest in kind of greater numbers than I've ever seen before. So I don't know if more people are just adopting the title of data scientist or we're actually seeing more of that kind of becoming ever present as a fixture here as we start talking about more technology applications. So one other topic and one final topic I really wanted to hit on was this idea of humanizing technology. It's something that we're hearing over and over again. We're talking about how human-centric design principles are really integrating how people are designing technology application. And so, Craig, I know you and I were speaking about this a little bit earlier on some of the principles that we're seeing through mobile device design, et cetera.
Yeah, there's a new app that came out. It's called Moves, and it's something that the more and more people I talk to within the technology circles, it comes up in conversation because there's no interface. There's no buttons to push. You literally just install it on your phone and look at it, and it just works, right? So, I think when we're thinking about human-centric design, we have to understand, one, what is the problem we're solving with building that piece of technology, and two, like, how do we design it in a way that allows people to benefit the most from it as a person. And then this goes back to my point of keeping people in the moment and as a human being. So, if for example,
I know this is something Amber Case touched on last year at South by Southwest. So.
So if everyone, when Foursquare came out, everyone said, like, why do you have to check in to a place? You're there. It knows you're there. Just be there, right? And I think over the past few years, we've all become a lot more comfortable with privacy and with understanding there is no privacy, and understanding that we ourselves are our data points. And there's nothing wrong with that, because what it does is it allows us to live in a more streamlined world that is allowed to give back. So, right, what we're putting into the world is what we're going to get back.
But the interesting part is, right, there's that fine line which we challenge. We challenge that every day. Where's that line of creepy? Where's the line? And that's something that as we're building experience, I cannot tell you how many times I've been in client conversations about what we should be doing back, and they come back and say, the CMO is like, that is brilliant, but that is creepy. Right, and that is that fine line.
That exists in culture. That's always existed in culture. There's always been a creepy part of everything. right? And technology has its creepy parts, and there are audiences who love.
But to your point, I think it's going. I think people are seeing less and less of being a creepy thing, and I think it's a new thing, and it's not creepy that iTunes knows exactly what movie I want to watch, and it knows exactly what music I like, and, and it's not creepy that I mean, all Nike knows exactly how far I like to run, where I run. That's not creepy, and so there's this basically, to your point, which is as we're building this humanizing experiences, me knowing a lot about my customer has never been off bounds. It's how we present that. It's what we do with that experience. That's where we get, that's where we have to make sure that we're checking the box.
Right. Brands are only now figuring out that it isn't creepy when what you're giving back to your customers is valuable.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
It's not so. In the early days of Gmail, when we saw like our ads for things that we were talking about, right? That was creepy. That was
reading
really
my
creepy,
mail.
right?
Oh my gosh.
But I think as technology becomes more and more demystified, and one thing I have to say is this year, there's definitely a much more diverse crowd here at South by Southwest. It used to be like Geek Central, and it was a very sort of tight-knit club of people. And
it's mainstream now.
Yeah, it really is mainstream. And as technology becomes more demystified, we're becoming less creeped out by some of the stuff that's happening around us. And as marketers, our job is to find the value in what we can help our brands give back to people based on the things that they're inputting into.
Absolutely. That's like a theme we've been talking about too with the democratization. I know that Bree Pettit talked about this in the keynote, democratization of manufacturing, right? But the same thing's true with technology. It's kind of the democratization of technology.
And just to your point, pop tag is actually very much on that subject because really it's coding, it's simple coding, but by demystifying that and showing how easy it is to affect change, that's something that we're seeing at the moment where it's actually fun to code something and make something happen, and you saw how it happened and it wasn't that complicated. So that simplifying that, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah, the thing that I've noticed is, as I watch TV, most of the commercials I have no interest in whatsoever, and I don't think it's creepy at all if I could tell someone, don't try to sell me insurance. I already have insurance, right? And so all of these commercials that I'm seeing that, obviously Geico they have somewhat amusing commercials, and they're funny, but for the most part, I'm getting a lot of data and information that I don't really care about. And so I would love, and I don't think it's creepy at all, to be able to tell someone, give me commercials about this stuff. But everyone says that's creepy, that's creepy, that's creepy. But the problem is you're going to get commercials anyway, so why not get media that you're interested in, right? Because otherwise it's kind of a waste of money. So as marketers, it's more on us to obviously create media that is more digestible by consumers, as well as just doing really good stuff. But we got to get to that point where people realize that they're
I think
part of the system.
The truth is, it really boils down to if an app is creepy, if your experience is creepy, it didn't provide enough value. Like when you're getting personal without value, that's creepy. But when you're valuable and personal, that's just cool. And I think so. The true measuring stick is if people are seeing what you're doing as creepy, it probably needs to be more valuable. That's kind of how I see it.
So the only one downside of that is like, you'll notice sometimes that you'll go to a website and say you're a member of the website and it's a service-based website. And so as you become a member of this website and then you surf the web later on, they're still you see banners everywhere where they're trying to get your service. Obviously, I've already bought into the service, but you're still trying to sell me on the service. So we haven't quite mastered it yet, but I think there's a lot of good stuff down the road.
Absolutely. Craig, I'm going to ask you, Kim just touched on pop tag for a minute. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and talk to our audience here, both on the web and in this room, a little bit more about what pop tag is and why we're debuting it here at South by Southwest.
So pop tag is a platform that we developed through our curiosity for experimenting with different platforms and rolling in utility into those platforms that we felt they desperately needed. Before Twitter started putting filters on their images and they had their little spat with Instagram, we actually did it first, right? And we did it because we felt the need for contextualizing an effect and for putting context around a moment in time. And Twitter, it seems to be, it's the first network that has truly identified itself and its purpose in society. I think we're still trying to figure out, like, what is Facebook? Is it like stocky? And what is G+? But Twitter, we know what Twitter is. Twitter is sort of the collective voice. It's the chatter. It's sort of our bee or ant-like language that we use to talk to one another. So what we did was we took Twitter and we added a layer of utility on top of it to allow people to add effects to their images, overlays, dynamic text, you name it. And it's a really simple platform that brands can use. Literally, it's literally turnkey, where all you have to do is assign a hashtag to a filter, and it's similar to a Photoshop filter or an image or a brand logo. I mean, the possibilities are endless, really. And upon tweeting an image with a particular hashtag, we will dynamically render that image with whatever effect we want, right? So, and similar to what's going on here in South by, it's really the very first step of what we're doing as an agency in terms of making these utilities easier. So we're already working on the next level of building a commerce layer into PopTag. We're building dynamic text layer into PopTag. And like Kim said, it is the simplicity of programming on a social platform and demystifying the ability for people to manipulate media in real time on their own.
And for those who are here at the festival, we are actually debuting PopTag. It's poptag.me. And if you actually go to the website, go to poptag.me, you can see that we're giving away a MakerBot 3D printer for those here at the festival. So all you have to do is tweet a photo using the hashtag Poppin South by Southwest, and you're entered to win. So that easy.
What I love about PopTag as a device as well, something that I think Torrent Spoons and Google spoke about this, and I think it applies to Twitter as well. We've got a lot of fantastic channels, if you like, at the moment, or platforms we can be using, and yet we haven't explored fully. A lot of people are out building new things without actually looking at how we can hack, if you like, what's out there at the moment and make the most of it. And I love how this adds a new layer and a new meaning to Twitter that's really relevant for the way people use Twitter. So it's what we want to do is people are using Twitter while they're watching a TV show, for instance, and this is a way for them to become part of a conversation just by doing something very simple. That's the behavior they would be doing naturally using Twitter anyway. That's why I think it's fantastic.
And I think it's also really great, the more and more we used to always focus on disruptive marketing, and what this actually does is allows you to, people are creating great content every day. That's why social is a phenomenon. That's why online is a phenomenon. And technology platforms, like PopTag, allows us to enrich that experience, but more importantly, allow Craig to take his experience he's done and hand it off to his family and friends in his community that we've enhanced, and we can superimpose our brand. So Craig, who is a trusted community and his support network, can introduce my brand to all his entire network with value. And I think that is a key thing. So being less disruptive and more value add is a key thing.
That's a good point. One of the big things that we discussed when we were building the platform was, how do you build in a more natural brand? Basically, brands are disrupting conversations, right? Imagine we're having drinks, and someone from AT&T walks up to our table and tries to sell us a plan. That's creepy, right? So, how do we, right? And your number. So there really was a lot of there was a lot of curiosity around how do we start playing with helping brands become more native, more natural within social platforms. So how do you share the moment you're in that is typically provided by a brand, right? So for example, Bacardi, one of our clients in the UK, threw a party they threw a competition for bartenders, and they used the platform to be able to capture the whole event people using their own images and applying their customized filter and their logo to those images in a really seamless and easy way. And they were extremely pleased with the results because they didn't have to do anything more than unlock that feature for people, and people did the rest.
Absolutely. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, I'm going to actually ask each of you. We are only here it is, it's only Saturday. We have so much more great content to experience at South by Southwest. So I'm going to ask you each, what are you looking forward to most about the rest of the content at the festival?
I think personally, as a techie, I'm most eager to learn. I mean, South by Southwest is a great place for smaller companies to come all across the globe and showcase what they've been working on the last year. I mean, that's kind of like, and what I'm really excited about is seeing, all these kind of data connection points that they're exposing, because as I like to think of myself as an innovator and a developer and a kind of creative guy. We can focus on how we're going to build these experiences with new data that's now accessible to us that would have been challenging before. And as we work with very, very large brands in their databases and understanding who their customer is, now augmenting that with these data points to create even more enriching, more valuable, less creepy experiences. I think learning about what's kind of those possibilities and what the next step of great experience design is, that's what I'm personally really eager about.
Pretty easy. I want my mind to be blown. Really in search of the next innovation out there that we can apply to creating customer experiences. By the time something goes mainstream, we've missed it. So this is a great opportunity to see and visit with all of the startups out here to see what's percolating out there, and then figure out how we apply it to what we do so we can be ahead of the curve and bring that to the forefront for our clients. So mind-blowing.
I've seen everything already, so. South by Southwest is always a time for me to kind of get psyched, right? So for me, it's a matter of just being here and experiencing what's going on,
Inspired.
and then being able to go back to New York City and just inspire as many other people around me with what I've seen, what I've heard, funny stories. I mean, it's just the whole experience of being here and how exciting this space is right now, and just taking it in as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, I'm looking for inspiration as well. I'm a musician, and when I was a kid, I was on this journey to find every new bit of music I would listen to. I was like, okay, this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one that I'm going to listen to for the rest of my life, and it's going to change my life, and it's going to be real like John Coltrane or something. So I'm here, and every time I come to these, I want to go to that one thing where I'm going to be so inspired that it's going to be something that is core to who I am, and it's going to change my life forever. It's a big ask. That's pretty high.
Till next South by.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that'll give me something else. So I'm just building this up,
I love collaboration. I think this is one big, massive form of collaboration,
Absolutely.
really, where you can sort of share ideas with a hugely diverse population of people who are bringing their ideas to the table, and really so that you can take it in and from various forms and then go away and sort of bring it to the next level, do your own thinking. The sections that I've marked down for me, I'm particularly interested in content creation, in storytelling, and so those are the ones that I feel drawn to, that I'm going to try and get to see while I'm here, just from the aspect of how a journalist sort of using social, how are they populating stories, even from a form of filmmakers and content creation. That's where I'm going to be headed if I can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. I thank you all for joining me here in this fireside chat. Thank you for bringing the flames, Kim. I appreciate that. So for those who are following us online, we will have more opinions and thought pieces from these folks, these fellow rappers of mine, and we will be posting those to rap.com/South by Southwest. So please feel free to follow us there. And otherwise, you can get all the live action from us at RAPP on Twitter. So thank you very much. We appreciate you coming today.
Thank you, Zila.
Thanks, guys.